Today's video is about a little device that I recently added to my equipment and which has significantly changed the quality of my studio setup. I'm talking about this little guy here. This is the Mini DSP Flex, a digital signal processor that sits between my audio interface and my speakers. And the cool thing is that it runs the Dirac Live speaker calibration software that makes sure that my monitors sound the best they can. The Mini DSP Flex is quite affordable and has solved a massive problem that I was fighting with for years. If you have clicked on this video, chances are that you're struggling with similar problems and this device might solve that for you. So let's get started. Before I get started, I need to point out that this is not a sponsored video. I paid for this device with my own money and beyond that had no contact with Mini DSP whatsoever. The reason I'm making this video simply is that I'm honestly excited about this device. It has helped me a lot and I think it might help you as well. I should also point out that this device is primarily meant to be used in a stereo setup. It can address up to 4 speakers, but the Dirac Live room correction system is stereo only. This does, however, include a subwoofer, so technically the room correction can work with 3 speakers. For those of you who are following my channel for its spatial audio content, I do need to point out that this device is not multi-channel capable. Mini DSP sells an 8-channel version, which comes with an 8-channel license for the Dirac software. But this one that I have is stereo only. And finally, I also need to address the elephant in the room. Yes, I do know that the setup of my monitors is as bad as it gets. And yes, I do know that in order to improve the quality of the sound I get, I would have to move the speakers to a different location. At the moment, the left speaker sits next to the wall, whereas the right speaker is literally in the middle of the room. This is far from ideal, I'm fully aware of that. However, I really come to like the way my videos look, so over time I started to accept that this is a bit of a trade-off, either ideal sound monitoring or ideal video setup. And because I mainly make videos these days and do most of my audio work with headphones, the video setup won. But that does not mean that I do not want my monitors to sound good, which is why I wanted to optimize the sound I'm getting from the speakers as much as I can without significantly changing their current position. And in case you're wondering, the monitors that I'm using are the ADAM T7V with matching ADAM T10S subwoofer. The room here is acoustically treated, and even though that treatment is not perfect, everything actually sounds better than one would expect given the location of the speakers. But it is not perfect, so I tried a few different room correction systems, including Sonarworks, IK Multimedia's ARC system, as well as also Wave's Tract system, and they all work reasonably well, but they all have their individual advantages and disadvantages. And by the way, if you want me to do a comparison of those systems, let me know in the comments. I certainly have a lot of things that I could talk about in terms of room correction systems and how they compare. If you want me to do that, let me know. But in the end, none of these calibration systems was really capable to make a change substantial enough for me to deal with all the complications they bring, because all of them are software-based, and therefore you always need to make sure that they are either off or on, depending on what you're doing. And if the calibration is activated, you need to always make sure that you're using the right calibration preset. If you're working with headphones, for example, you need to choose the correct headphone preset, and if you're then switching over to monitors, you need to change the settings in the room calibration software as well. For me personally, the quality improvement these systems bring was never worth the hassle of maintaining the correct settings in the software, and therefore I always ended up not using the room calibration software. And this is where the Mini DSP Flex caught my attention, because here I don't really need to use software anymore. Everything is in a ready-to-go device. The Mini DSP Flex is a physical digital signal processing unit in a relatively small form factor that has the capability to apply room correction via the Dirac Live system. Now the basic idea is that you put it in the signal chain in front of your speakers and it will handle the calibration of the audio. That way you never have to think about room calibration, you just have it in the signal chain right where it belongs, directly in front of the speakers. Such digital signal processing units are quite common in professional environments, but they tend to be very expensive. The Mini DSP Flex, by contrast, is reasonably affordable. It's not exactly cheap either, but it comes at a price point that most hobbyists should be able to afford. Now at this point I should mention that IK Multimedia recently also came out with a similar unit for their ARC system called the ARC Studio. I have not been able to test that. I always felt that the ARC system is not really able to solve the issues with my particular setup, so my guess is that I probably wouldn't like it, but that's only a guess. If you have the Arc Studio calibration system and you like it, leave a comment. I would be really interested to learn more. The Arc Studio is extremely affordable and I might just give it a try just for comparison. It would probably make a good video. But back to the Mini DSP Flex. The Mini DSP Flex comes in 3 versions, one with unbalanced outputs, one with balanced outputs and one with digital outputs. I have the balanced version, which is a little bit more expensive, but I felt given my setup, the price difference is probably worth it. The balanced version of the Mini DSP Flex comes in at $570 and then you also need the Dirac Live license, which comes in at an additional $199. I also recommend picking up the microphone, the measurement microphone, and here you can simply use the cheaper one, which is an additional $75. So overall, the cost comes in at $844 plus any applicable shipping fees, custom fees, and duties. Mini DSP is located in China. In my case, this added an additional $30 for shipping and fees. Once again, not cheap, but reasonably affordable. Shipping was surprisingly fast. It took about a week for the unit to reach me. The overall build quality of the unit is good. It feels solid and very well constructed. On the back of the balanced unit, you have 4 balanced outputs, 2 balanced inputs, and SPDIF input, a Toslink input, and a USB connection that can serve both to control the unit as well as for audio input. There's also the option to receive audio via Bluetooth. And on the front, there is a big control knob, and that feels nice and solid as well, and it allows you to control the main functions. And additionally, you also have a remote control. But in general, this is a set and forget device. I rarely ever change any of the settings. So much to the hardware. Let's have a look at the software. But before I continue, a quick reminder that if you have enjoyed this video so far, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions or comments, please either use the comment section below or join us on our Discord server. Invite link is in the description as well. If you want to support this channel, you can do that now by becoming a member either through YouTube or Patreon. There's also a free membership option on Patreon if you just want to lurk around. You can use one of the affiliate links below, or you can buy some of my In Immersion with I'm Presence merch, like this very comfortable pillow. All contributions to this channel are used to purchase the software and hardware I talk about on this channel. And with that being said, let's return to the Mini DSP Flex. When you use the Mini DSP Flex for speaker calibration, there are 2 pieces of software that you need to install. First, there's the Mini DSP device console application that you need to download from the user area of your Mini DSP account. And then there's the Dirac software that needs to be downloaded separately, and you need to download the version that works with the Dirac enabled devices. I originally made the mistake of downloading the entire Dirac Live room correction suite, which is this one down here. Now, this is not what you need. You just need to download Dirac Live. And that software directly integrates with the Mini DSP Flex console application. So let's have a look at this console application and what you can do with it. The Mini DSP console is fairly straightforward to use. Once you loaded it up, the first thing that you need to do is you need to select the device that you want to control. In my particular case, it's the Flex here. And as soon as I click on that, I get the user interface. You see the 2 inputs. They're currently set to Dirac 1 and Dirac 2 because I'm using it in Dirac mode. And then you have the 4 outputs. You can select which input goes to what output. You have the possibility to adjust the EQ for each individual output. You have a crossover section that allows you to address a separate subwoofer. Now, in my particular case, I don't need to do that because the subwoofer and the 2 speakers are an integrated system. So I just address the subwoofer, and the subwoofer essentially does all the crossover on its own. Then you can also select a delay, a time delay. You can change the gain settings for each individual output. You can invert the phase, you can mute that output, and you can add a compressor. On the left side, you have all the controls that you can also control from the device itself. First of all, you have the master gain settings here. I've set that to 0. Then you have the Dirac Live settings. I'm going to come back to that in a second. Then you can select which input you have. In my particular case, I'm choosing analog input, but you can switch that over to Toslink, SPDIF, USB, or Bluetooth, whatever you want. You can also customize which of the options should be available to you in the device itself. So for example, if you don't want to see the SPDIF version on the device itself, you can simply disable that here. And finally, there's also a section where you can save and load presets in case you want to switch between the different settings. So let's have a look at the Dirac setup. Now, the way this works is actually very simple. What you have to do is you have to click on the Start Calibration button in order to start the Dirac Live setup. And then the software is going to open up. In my particular case, for whatever reason, it's going to open up on the secondary screen, so I apologize for that. But here you then select which device you want to calibrate. In my particular case, it's the Mini DSP Flex. And I'm going to click on that. And then the next step would be to select the measurement microphone. Now, this is where you would connect the measurement microphone that you get from Mini DSP. And in my particular case, I don't have that connected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply select one of those. Then you go on to the volume calibration. Here you would need to change the gain settings to make sure that the measurements are measured correctly. And once you've done that, you go to the arrangement selection. In the arrangement selection, you can change what type of calibration do you want to have. Do you want to have a calibration with a focused imaging, like for example, somebody sitting on a couch? Or do you want to have something with tightly focused imaging, which would be a little bit like me in my current seat here, whereas everything is very, very small and tightly focused? Or do you want to have a wide imaging that would be suitable for multiple people listening to your setup, for example? Now, in my particular case, because everything is so small here, I went with the tightly focused imaging. And then you go through the measurement process, and that measurement process will look different depending on what type of imaging you chose. Now, in my particular case, because I chose the tightly focused imaging, I have a total of 9 measurements to take. If you choose something else, so for example, if you choose the wide imaging, and we kind of measure, we have significantly more measurements to take. Now, if you have ever done such a calibration, this process should be familiar to you. The only thing that I would add here is that the Dirac process is not as user-friendly as Sonarworks, for example. With Sonarworks, the system will actually tell you if your mic is positioned correctly. Here you have to make sure on your own that the mic is at the correct position when you take a measurement. And once you've done all the measurements, and I'm not going to do that here, the system will calculate the filter and finally send it over to the Mini DSP Flex. And that's pretty much everything that there is to it. So what were the results? Well, when I first tested the calibration, I was a bit surprised that the stereo image suddenly sounded narrower. It was almost as if there was something wrong with the way I did the setup. But then I started to immediately notice that this was because the Dirac calibration made the stereo image significantly more accurate. Before I used Dirac, the stereo field of my speakers was somewhat smeared all over the place. The best way to explain this is that when I used a mono frequency sweep, the phantom center would wobble around. Not much, just a tiny bit. I'm honestly not entirely sure why that was. My assumption always was that this was the result of speaker boundary interference and the fact that the speakers were set up asymmetrically. But I could be completely wrong. If you have a better understanding where that smearing effect came from, let me know in the comments. I'm really interested to learn more. Now, with Dirac Live enabled, that is completely gone. When I do a frequency sweep now, the phantom center stays right in the center with no movement whatsoever. This is exactly how it should be. And as a result of that, the stereo imaging is now significantly more accurate, and that gave me a slightly more narrow impression, interestingly. It is worth pointing out that neither Sonarworks nor IK Multimedia's ARC system were able to correct that. Dirac Live was the first one that fixed that issue for me. I'm assuming that's because Dirac Live is the only system that does active phase alignment, but once again, I could be wrong. The only thing that I can say though is that in my particular setup, the Dirac system performs significantly better than anything else I have tried so far, including Sonarworks, ARC, or the Waves Tracked system. It honestly isn't even close. Now, once again, this could be because of my unusual setup, so if you are a Dirac Live user, I would be interested to learn from you if you have the same experience. If that is the case, leave a comment in the comment section below. I'm interested to learn more. In terms of the frequency response results, I can show you the final results after applying Dirac Live in RAW. Now, if I do psychoacoustic smoothing, the response curves stay within a couple of dB, which is more than good enough for my particular purpose. I do have to point out that I added a little bit of gain to the bass because it just sounds nicer, otherwise it would be more or less flat. If I go to a less aggressive smoothing, for example to 1/24th, I see that I still have a couple of dips, and these dips are most likely a result of room modes that I couldn't get rid of. And obviously, in order to get rid of those, I would have to change the position of my speakers, which once again, I don't really want to do because once again, I really like how this looks on video. So overall, I can only recommend this unit. I've been using it for a couple of months now, and I'm extremely happy with the results. It's not exactly cheap, but in my opinion, definitely worth it. But this is everything I wanted to say today. Thanks again for watching my videos. I truly appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments, please use the comment section below or join us on our Discord server for a chat. Invite link is in the description below. And with that being said, see you all at the next video.